One beautiful morning, a husband headed out early to fish while his wife stayed behind at the lakeside cabin. A few hours later he returned, tired from fishing, and decided to take a nap. The wife, who wasn't familiar with the lake, thought she'd take the boat out to enjoy the sunshine. She motored a short distance from shore, dropped the anchor, and settled in with a good book. A little while later, a game warden pulled up alongside her boat. "Good morning, ma'am," he said. "What are you doing?" "Reading," she replied, glancing up from her book. The warden frowned. "You're in a restricted fishing area." "I'm sorry, officer," she said, "but I'm not fishing." "I understand that," he replied. "But you've got fishing rods, tackle, and all the equipment on board. I'll have to write you a ticket." She looked puzzled. "For reading a book?" "No, for being in a restricted fishing area with fishing equipment. For all I know, you could start fishing at any moment." She calmly closed her book. "If you write me that ticket," she said, "I'll charge you with sexual assault." The game warden's eyes widened. "What? I haven't even touched you." "That's true," she said with a smile. "But you have all the equipment. For all I know, you could start at any moment." The game warden paused, tipped his hat. "Have a nice day, ma'am." Then he quietly turned his boat around and headed back across the lake. Two old friends, one 70 and the other 75, were sitting on a park bench one morning. The 75-year-old had just finished his daily jog and wasn't even breathing hard. His younger friend stared at him in amazement. "How on earth do you have so much energy?" he asked. The older man smiled. "It's simple," he said. "I eat rye bread every single day." "Rye bread?" his friend asked. "Absolutely. It keeps my energy up and gives me incredible stamina." The 70-year-old was impressed. On the way home, he stopped at the local bakery. "Can I help you?" the saleslady asked. "Yes," he said. "I'd like 5 loaves of rye bread." She looked surprised. "5 loaves? By the time you get to the 3rd loaf, it'll be hard." The old man stared at her in disbelief and said, "I can't believe everybody knows about this, except me." One morning, Boudreaux walked past his favorite little restaurant and noticed a sign in the window. "Ask about our breakfast special." Curious, he went inside, sat down, and the waitress poured him a cup of coffee. "What can I get for you this morning?" she asked. Boudreaux pointed at the sign. "So, what's the breakfast special?" The waitress smiled proudly. "Baked chicken tongue." Boudreaux nearly spit out his coffee. "Baked chicken tongue? That's disgusting. I wouldn't eat anything that came out of a chicken's mouth." Without missing a beat, the waitress smiled politely and asked, "Very well, sir, what would you like instead?" Boudreaux handed her the menu and said, "Just bring me some scrambled eggs." A very handsome young man decided it was his duty to marry the perfect woman so they could have the most beautiful children imaginable. Determined, he set out to find her. Before long, he met a farmer who had 3 beautiful daughters. "They're all hoping to get married," the farmer said. "Court whichever one you like." The young man took the oldest daughter out first. The next day, the farmer asked, "Well, what did you think?" "She's lovely," the man replied. "But she's just the tiniest bit pigeon-toed. You'd hardly notice it." The farmer nodded. "Then maybe you should try my second daughter." So he did. The following morning, the farmer asked again. "She's wonderful too," the man said. "But she's just the slightest bit cross-eyed. Honestly, you'd barely notice." The farmer smiled. "Well then, give my youngest daughter a chance." The young man did, and by the very next morning he came rushing back, beaming. "She's perfect," he exclaimed. "Absolutely perfect. I want to marry her." The wedding took place a few weeks later. Several months after that, their first baby was born. The proud father hurried to the nursery, took one look at the baby, and nearly collapsed. The child was, unfortunately, nothing like the beautiful baby he'd imagined. Shocked, he stormed back to his father-in-law. "How could this happen?" he demanded. "Look at me! Look at your daughter! We're both good-looking." The old farmer let out a long sigh and said, "Well, she was just the teeniest little bit. Already pregnant when you met her." A woman rushed into the pharmacy to pick up medicine for her sick daughter. She grabbed the prescription, hurried back to her car, and immediately realized she'd locked her keys inside. Panicking, she searched the ground and found an old wire coat hanger. Holding it in her hands, she sighed. "I wouldn't even know where to start." So she closed her eyes and prayed. "Lord, please, my little girl is sick. I really need help. Please send someone." Less than 5 minutes later, an old motorcycle rumbled into the parking lot. The rider climbed off. He had a long beard, worn-out biker clothes, tattoos, and looked like he'd had a rough life. "Need a hand, ma'am?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "My daughter is sick, and I've locked my keys in the car. Do you think you could open it with this hanger?" The biker smiled. "I can give it a try." He took the hanger, walked over to the car, and in less than a minute, click, the door unlocked. The woman threw her arms around him. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Then she looked up to the sky and cried, "Thank you, Lord, for sending me such a kind and wonderful man." The biker laughed. "Ma'am, I'm not a wonderful man. I was released from prison yesterday. I served 5 years for stealing cars." The woman hugged him even tighter and looked back toward the sky. "Oh, thank you, Lord. You didn't just send me help. You sent me a professional." The star attraction at the local zoo was a huge gorilla. People came from miles around just to see him. Then one night, the gorilla died peacefully of old age. The zoo couldn't afford to replace him right away, and management feared they'd lose a fortune in ticket sales. So the zoo owner called one of the workers into his office. "I've got an unusual job for you," he said. "We still have the gorilla costume from an old promotion. If you'll wear it and pretend to be the gorilla for a while, I'll pay you an extra $100 a day." The worker thought about it, then agreed. To everyone's surprise, he was fantastic. He beat his chest, scratched his head, climbed trees, and swung from ropes so convincingly that visitors couldn't get enough of him. Soon, crowds were even bigger than before. After several weeks, though, he noticed people seemed less impressed. So he decided to give them something unforgettable. He climbed to the highest branch in the enclosure and launched himself toward another rope. He swung farther than ever before, but lost his grip. The crowd screamed as he sailed over the fence and landed smack in the middle of the lion enclosure. The enormous lion slowly turned and began walking toward him. Terrified, the fake gorilla backed away until there was nowhere left to run. As the lion crouched to pounce, the man panicked and screamed, "Help! Help! Somebody save me! I'm not really a gorilla!" The lion sprang forward, pinned him to the ground, leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Will you keep your mouth shut? Or we'll both lose our jobs." A cowboy who had recently moved from Texas to Wyoming walked into a bar and ordered 3 mugs of beer. He carried them to a table in the back, then took a sip from each one in turn. When all 3 were empty, he returned to the bar and ordered 3 more. Curious, the bartender said, "You know, beer tastes better fresh. Why not order them one at a time?" The cowboy smiled. "I've got 2 brothers, one lives in Arizona, the other in Colorado. When we all left Texas, we made a promise that whenever one of us had a beer, we'd each have one for the others too. So every time I come in, I drink one for each of my brothers, and one for myself." The bartender nodded. "That's a fine tradition." The cowboy became a regular, and every visit was the same, 3 beers, sipped one after another. Then one evening, he walked in and ordered only 2 beers. The bar fell silent. Everyone assumed the worst. After a few minutes, the bartender quietly walked over and said, I don't want to intrude, but I'm very sorry for your loss. The cowboy looked puzzled. My loss? The bartender nodded toward the two beers. The cowboy suddenly laughed. Oh no! My brothers are both alive and doing just fine. It's just that my wife and I joined the Baptist church. And I had to quit drinking. He picked up one of the beers with a grin. Hasn't affected my brothers, though. One afternoon, a little girl asked her mother, Mom, how did the human race begin? Her mother smiled and said, God created Adam and Eve. They had children, and over time the whole human race came from them. The little girl nodded thoughtfully. A few days later, she asked her father the very same question. He replied, Well, millions of years ago, humans evolved from monkeys. Now thoroughly confused, the little girl went back to her mother. Mom, she said, I'm confused. You told me people were created by God, but Dad says we came from monkeys. Her mother smiled and said, Oh, sweetheart, that's easy. I was telling you about my side of the family. And your father was telling you about his. A woman met a man in a bar. They talked, laughed, and instantly hit it off. After a few drinks, they decided to go back to his apartment. As he showed her around, she noticed something unusual in his bedroom. One entire wall was covered with teddy bears. There were 3 long shelves, stretching from one end of the room to the other. The bottom shelf was filled with small teddy bears. The middle shelf held medium-sized bears. And the top shelf was lined with enormous teddy bears. Everything was perfectly arranged. She couldn't help but think it was surprisingly sweet for such a rugged-looking man. She figured the bears must have sentimental value, so she politely said nothing. They shared another bottle of wine, talked for hours, and the more they talked, the more she thought. This man could be the one. Eventually, they kissed. One thing led to another, and they spent the night together. Later, as they lay in bed catching their breath, she smiled, gently stroked his chest, and softly asked, So, how was it? He smiled back, looked into her eyes, and said, Help yourself to any prize. From the middle shelf. A man went for a job interview with the local city council. The interviewer looked over his application and asked, Are you allergic to anything? Yes, the man replied. Caffeine. Not a problem, said the interviewer. Now, are you disabled in any way? The man hesitated for a moment. Well, I served in the army, and I was injured in an explosion. Oh? What happened? It blew my testicles off. The interviewer winced. I'm very sorry to hear that. After a moment, he smiled and said, Well, congratulations. You're hired. The man looked relieved. Great! When do I start? Tomorrow. And what are the working hours? Officially, it's from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Perfect, the man said. So I'll be here at 8. The interviewer shook his head. No need. You can come in at 10 o'clock. The man frowned. I thought you said the hours were 8 to 3. They are, the interviewer replied. But this is a government job. For the first 2 hours, everyone just stands around drinking coffee and scratching themselves. He smiled. And since you can't do either, there's really no point in you coming in early. After I retired, I decided I still wanted to stay active. So I got myself a nice little part-time job as a Walmart greeter. I lasted less than 1 day. About 2 hours into my very first shift, a loud, angry woman stormed through the entrance with 2 kids trailing behind her. She was yelling at them the entire way. Just as I'd been trained, I smiled warmly and said, Good morning! Welcome to Walmart! Then I added, You've got some wonderful children there. Are they twins? She stopped in her tracks and glared at me. Twins? Are you blind or just stupid? The older one's 9, and the younger one's 7. What on earth made you think they were twins? I smiled politely and said, No, ma'am. I'm not blind. And I'm not stupid. I just couldn't believe anyone would sleep with you twice. Then I smiled again and said, Have a wonderful day. And thank you for shopping at Walmart. My supervisor later informed me that customer service probably wasn't my strongest skill. A wealthy businessman was admitted to St. Vincent's Hospital for major heart surgery. The doctors discovered he had an extremely rare blood type, and despite searching everywhere, they couldn't find a matching donor. Finally, they located a Scotsman with the same blood type. Without hesitation, the Scotsman agreed to donate his blood. The surgery was a complete success. A few days later, the grateful businessman sent the Scotsman an incredible thank you gift: a brand new BMW, a handful of diamonds, and a thick envelope stuffed with cash. The Scotsman was delighted. A few months later, the businessman needed another operation. Once again, the doctors called the same Scotsman. Once again, he gladly donated his blood. The second surgery went just as well. A few days later, the Scotsman received another package. Inside was a thank you card and a small box of chocolates. Completely bewildered, he called the businessman. After the first operation, you sent me a BMW, diamonds, and a pile of cash. But this time I only get a card and a box of chocolates. The businessman chuckled and replied, I've got Scottish blood in me now. An older man finally manages to leave the Soviet Union in the late 1980s to join his wife and son in the United States. As he heads through the Soviet border, a guard searches his luggage and pulls out a bust of Lenin. What is this? The guard asks. Don't ask me what this is, ask me who this is, the man replies. This is Vladimir Lenin, the great hero who fought for the rights of the people in our country. I'm bringing him with me to remind myself to continue that battle in America. The guard nods and lets him through. When the man arrives in America, the customs officer opens his luggage and finds the bust of Lenin. What's this? The officer asks. Don't ask me what this is, ask me who this is, the man says. This is Vladimir Lenin, the fiendish monster who destroyed my beautiful homeland. I'm bringing him with me to remind myself of the mistakes of the past. The officer nods and lets him through. The man then takes a taxi to the house where his wife and son are waiting for him. After the emotional reunion, the son spots the bust of Lenin and asks, Papa, who is this? The man smiles and replies, My son, don't ask me who this is, ask me what this is. This, my son, is 18 pounds of gold. 3 friends, a turtle, a mole, and a bear, are drafted into the army, but none of them want to go, so they each need to provide medical proof why they can't join. It's easy for me, says the turtle. I'm slow. He enters the examination room, and when he comes out, he happily tells his friends that he is officially too slow to join. Well, says the mole, I'm literally blind. How could they possibly want me? He goes in for his exam and just a few minutes later comes out and hugs his friends, relieved that they don't need a blind mole in the army. All right, guys, says the bear, terrified. Let's face it, I'm one of the biggest and most dangerous animals. I'm the perfect soldier. The turtle thinks for a moment, then says slowly, I have an idea. The most dangerous part of you is your teeth. Without your teeth, you're not really dangerous. So if we just smash your teeth, they won't want you. Reluctantly, the bear agrees, and the 3 friends work together to smash his teeth. The bear enters the examination room, and after 10 minutes, he comes out with his head hanging low and a sad face. So, do you have to join the army? Asks the turtle cautiously. The bear mumbles, No, I'm too fat. 2 midgets go into a bar, where they pick up 2 prostitutes and take them to their separate hotel rooms. The first midget, however, is unable to get an erection. His depression is made worse by the fact that, from the next room, he hears his little friend shouting out cries of, Here I come again! 1, 2, 3, UUH! All night long. In the morning, the second midget asks the first, How did it go? The first mutters. It was so embarrassing. I simply couldn't get an erection. The second midget shook his head. You think that's embarrassing? I couldn't even get on the bed. A wife came home early one afternoon and walked into her bedroom, only to find her husband in bed with a stunning young woman. She exploded. You lying, cheating pig! She shouted. How could you do this to me, your loyal wife, the mother of your children? That's it. I want a divorce. Her husband threw up his hands. Wait. Please, just let me explain. Oh, I'll listen, she snapped. But whatever you say will be the last thing you ever say to me. He took a deep breath. On my way home from work today, I saw this young woman standing by the side of the road. She looked exhausted and starving. She told me she hadn't eaten in 3 days. I couldn't just leave her there, so I brought her home. I warmed up the enchiladas I'd made for you last night, the ones you refused to eat because you said they were too fattening. She devoured every bite. After that, I noticed how filthy she was, so I let her take a shower. While she was washing, I threw away her ragged clothes because they were full of holes. Then I found her something to wear. I gave her those designer jeans you haven't worn in years because they're too tight. I gave her the expensive lingerie I bought you for our anniversary, the one you said I'd wasted my money on. I gave her that beautiful blouse your sister gave you, the one you've never worn because you don't like her. And I even gave her those designer boots sitting in the closet because one of your coworkers bought the same pair. He paused for a moment. Then I walked her to the front door. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and softly asked, Mister, do you have anything else your wife doesn't use? At breakfast, a wife asked her husband, Would you like some bacon and eggs, toast, grapefruit juice, and coffee? He shook his head. No thanks. I'm not hungry. Really? She asked. Must be this Viagra. He sighed. It's completely taken away my appetite. At lunchtime, she tried again. How about a bowl of soup and a fresh sandwich? He smiled apologetically. Thanks, but I'm still not hungry. It has to be the Viagra. That evening, she prepared a wonderful dinner. Would you like a nice ribeye steak? Or maybe some roast chicken and apple pie? Once again, he declined. I'm sorry, honey. I just don't feel like eating. That Viagra has completely ruined my appetite. She looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. Well, would you mind getting off me? I'm absolutely starving.
A local business put up a sign in the window that read, Help wanted. Must be able to type, must be good with a computer, and must be bilingual. We are an equal opportunity employer. A short time later, a dog trotted up to the window, saw the sign, and went inside. The dog wagged its tail at the receptionist, then walked over to the sign, sniffed it, and whined. The receptionist, a bit surprised, got the office manager. The manager walked in, completely taken aback by the dog. But the dog looked determined, so the manager led him into the office. The dog jumped up onto the chair and stared at the manager, who said, I'm sorry, but I can't hire you. The sign says you have to be able to type. The dog jumped down, went to the typewriter, and typed out a perfect letter. He took the page and trotted over to the manager, handing it to him, then jumped back onto the chair. The manager was stunned. Okay, well, the sign also says you have to be good with a computer, the manager said. The dog jumped down again, walked over to the computer, and quickly demonstrated his expertise, navigating through programs, creating a spreadsheet, and even pulling up a database. He presented them to the manager with a proud wag of his tail. By now, the manager was speechless. He looked at the dog, thoroughly impressed, but said, I still can't give you the job. The sign also says you have to be bilingual. The dog stared back at him, then looked at the equal opportunity employer part of the sign. He then turned to the manager, looked him straight in the face, and said, Meow. A beautiful young woman was waiting for the bus in a crowded city, dressed in a tight leather mini-skirt, matching leather boots, and a jacket. As the bus arrived and it was her turn to board, She realized that her skirt was so tight she couldn't lift her leg high enough to step onto the bus. A little embarrassed, she flashed the bus driver a quick smile and decided to unzip her skirt just a bit to give herself some extra room. She tried again, but still couldn't make the step. With a sheepish grin, she unzipped it a little more and tried again, but still no luck. At this point, she flashed another smile at the driver, unzipped the skirt a little more, and attempted the step once again, but still couldn't manage it. As she was starting to get frustrated, a big Texan behind her gently picked her up by the waist and placed her on the step of the bus. Outraged, she spun around and yelled at him, "How dare you touch me? I don't even know you." The Texan, not missing a beat, smiled and said, "Well, ma'am, normally I'd agree with you, but after you unzipped my fly 3 times, I figured we were friends." A blonde was caught in a blizzard. The snow was falling heavily, and the winds were so strong that visibility was almost zero when she finished work. She made her way to her car and wondered how she'd ever make it home. Sitting in her car, she let it warm up and thought about her situation. Then she remembered her dad's advice. If she ever got stuck in a blizzard, she should wait for a snowplow to pass and follow it to avoid getting stuck in a snowdrift. This made her feel much better, and sure enough, after a short while, a snowplow appeared. She started following it, feeling smug as she easily navigated through the blizzard, while others were stuck in the snow. After a long time, the snowplow came to a stop, and the driver got out, walking toward her car. He signaled for her to roll down her window. "Are you okay?" he asked. "You've been following me for quite a while." She smiled and said, "Oh, I'm fine. My dad always told me to follow a snowplow if I got stuck in a blizzard, so that's what I'm doing." The driver nodded and said, "Well, that's fine, but I'm done plowing the Walmart parking lot. I'm heading over to the Kmart next." Jay Leno went into the audience to find the most embarrassing first date story, and the winner definitely had a tale for the ages. She began, "It was midwinter, snowing, and freezing cold when her date took her skiing in the mountains outside Salt Lake City. It was just a day trip, no overnight, since they were strangers. The day went fine until they were headed home late in the afternoon. The woman began feeling the consequences of that extra latte, realizing she wouldn't make it to the nearest restroom, an hour away, in the middle of nowhere. Her date suggested she hold it, but eventually, she had no choice but to ask him to stop so she could go by the side of the road. They pulled over, and she quickly scrambled out of the car, yanked her pants down, and squatted beside the vehicle for balance, using the rear fender to steady herself. Her date was a gentleman, standing to watch for traffic, giving her some privacy. She finally finished and went to pull up her pants, only to find her but was stuck to the cold fender. Horrified, she realized she was quite literally frozen in place. She called out to him that she was freezing her butt off and needed help. He rushed around to her side, but as soon as he saw her predicament, he burst out laughing. She couldn't help but join in, but soon the situation became clear. It would take something hot to unstick her. After a moment of silence, he realized there was only one thing to do. He unzipped his pants and peed on the car fender to melt the ice. The audience went wild with laughter. Jay Leno's comment? "This gives a whole new meaning to being wee-weed off." And with that, she won the Tonight Show prize. Or, as she put it, pants down. A cowboy rode into a small frontier town and tied his horse outside the local saloon before going in for a drink. The locals were known for giving strangers a hard time, so nobody paid him much attention. After finishing his beer, the cowboy stepped outside. His horse was gone. Without saying a word, he walked calmly back into the saloon. He drew his revolver, spun it effortlessly on one finger, caught it by the grip, and fired a shot straight into the ceiling. The room fell silent. The cowboy slowly looked around at everyone. "All right," he said calmly. "Which one of you took my horse?" Not a single person spoke. He nodded. "Fine." He ordered another beer and took his time drinking it. When he was almost finished, he looked around once more. "I'm gonna finish this drink. And if my horse isn't back outside by the time I'm done, I'm gonna have to do what I had to do in Texas." He paused. And believe me, I don't want to do what I had to do in Texas. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the cowboy finishing the last sip of his beer. He set the empty glass on the bar and walked outside. Sure enough, his horse was standing exactly where he'd left it. He saddled up, tipped his hat, and started riding out of town. The bartender hurried outside and called after him. "Hey, cowboy, what exactly did you have to do in Texas?" The cowboy smiled. "I had to walk home."